What is up, everybody? It is Lan here with another episode of Cheeseheadz Weekly. This is episode 53, and this is going to be a fun one as we get started here. But before we get there, you be sure to check out the Q&As and polls on Spotify. Lots of fun to participate in those and makes it more fun for me and for all you listeners out there. Also, the show is available pretty much everywhere you get your podcasts. It's also available on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe there. You can leave a comment on an episode. That would be fantastic. And I love to see the support, and very grateful for that. You can follow me on social media. I'm available pretty much everywhere now. And at Cheeseheadz_weekly, except for on X, it's at Cheeseheadz_W. I post short clips of each episode, kind of the highlights of each episode, and also whatever random stuff I feel like. I'm probably the most active on Instagram, but I post the clips pretty much everywhere, so you can check those out. And gives you something interesting to listen to, some good analysis, even if you don't want to listen to the whole episode. Also post those on YouTube as well. And new episodes come out every Tuesday. You can hit the bell icon on YouTube and Spotify to be notified when a new episode comes out. Be sure to rate the show. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, and also you can rate the show on Spotify. And be sure to tell your friends about the show as well. That would be fantastic. So we had some playoff football going on this weekend. We had Chiefs-Ravens, and we had Lions-49ers. I'll go over both those games briefly. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Baltimore Ravens 17-10. Not something we exactly expected there on the score, but there's a lot of defense in this game. But Kansas City, it may look like, only a 7-point game. Kansas City dominated this game. I was able to watch most of it, and wasn't really close. Chiefs defense held up well against the Ravens, and Ravens just made a couple really bad mistakes, or really more than just a couple, actually. And really, my takeaway from this is the Ravens weren't ready. The moment was too big for them. Specifically, Lamar Jackson had some incredible plays. Threw a 13-yard pass to himself, saved one interception on that one. Also threw an interception into triple coverage. Tried to do too much at times, it looked like, and thought he had to carry his team to victory instead of, doing the Patrick Mahomes thing, just hitting the layups, just, playing within the system. And Lamar's kind of been like that even throughout the regular season. He tries to make the big plays happen, and to be honest, his accuracy was not really there on deep throws. He was overthrowing a lot of guys. A few times he had guys open, and was able to hit a few guys downfield. At some points, hit Zay Flowers downfield at one point, but Zay Flowers got a taunting penalty on that play, and things just kept piling up. Later on that same drive, Lamar Jackson threw to Zay Flowers, who sprinted for the end zone, tried to dive in between two defenders into the end zone, got stripped before he got to the end zone. The dive would have been good enough, but not a great move because he extended both hands out, and they were able to strip it pretty easily. Chiefs recovered, and that was a 7-point swing right there. Lamar Jackson threw an interception into the end zone in the triple coverage, had no chance. Not sure what he was trying to do there. That's a 14-point swing. Just some really bad mistakes, and there were penalties all game. At one point, Kyle Van Noy got a personal foul, roughness penalty against Kyle Van Noy. Travis Kelce kind of just baited him into it, got in his face a little bit, They're talking trash, I guess, chirping a little bit there, and Kyle Van Noy just went and, headbutted him. the physical action is what's going to get called, and I can't do that. And Travis Kelce's a vet. He was laughing in his face after that one, and Kelce knows what he's doing, so he'll be out there just talking trash to everyone and just making everyone mad at him. And by the way, Travis Kelce, for all the Swifties out there, had a big old game. Don't remember what the exact stats were. A bunch of catches, over 100 yards. And, it's pretty evident that the Chiefs are made for playoff football. Ravens, not so much. And safe to say, Lamar Jackson, hasn't got that clutch element in him. The moment was just too big for Lamar, and I do think he'll be back. He's too good to keep, out of the playoffs and everything. But yeah, he's just really good. This is a good young team, and they came through some growing pains at the beginning of the year and looked unstoppable until they hit this game. I'll be honest, I did predict the Ravens to win because I had the Ravens and Niners in the Super Bowl. Before this game, I was getting a little bit nervous. I saw the game against the Bills and, Chiefs in the playoffs. I was like, you know what? Chiefs are probably going to win this one. I just kind of, had some doubt in my mind that the Ravens were going to be able to pull this off. And apparently that part was right. Obviously, I still had my prediction turned in from before that the Ravens were going to win. Didn't happen. To be honest, there was this little thing going around where the Super Bowl logo for the year has the teams that are in the Super Bowl with the colors of the teams in the Super Bowl, with the color on the bottom being the team that wins it. This year it had 49ers on top and Ravens colors on the bottom, not far off. You know what I think? I think what happened is, I was talking to one of my friends. I think what really happened is, Travis Kelce started dating Taylor Swift in the middle of the season. And so we had, before the season, they came up with the logo. They're like, all right, we're going to go 49ers, Ravens, Super Bowl. And it all was shaping up to be that eventually. And then the Taylor Swift movement happened. And the NFL's like, well, can that idea. We're going to have to get the Chiefs back in the Super Bowl for all the Swifties out there. So pretty sure that's what happened. Don't look now, but the NFL may be rigged. I wasn't terribly happy that we got another 49ers Chiefs Super Bowl, but it is Brock Purdy getting in is a cool story, and the 49ers did defeat the Detroit Lions in San Francisco at their home field, and they did it by overcoming the largest first-half deficit in championship history, and that deficit was 17 points, if I'm not mistaken. 49ers went on to win 34-31, and pretty much first half, it was all Lions. Second half, it was all 49ers, and Lions also made some really bad mistakes there at the end of the game, dropped a potential interception that instead ricocheted off the face mask of the Lions defender, and Brandon Ayuk made a tremendous catch. Great concentration to just keep that ball in view and able to make the grab, and that set up a touchdown as the 49ers were just rolling in the second half, breaking off big old plays. Brock Purdy had some huge runs, man. That guy is underrated. Athletic-wise, I mean, he can use his legs when he has to, and he was out there playing some tough, gritty football, and credit to Brock Purdy, looked really good out there. Lions made some bad mistakes. It honestly looked kind of like the Packers 49ers game in the divisional round the week before, where they were in control of the game, should have won the game, and just kind of threw the game away with some missed opportunities, some mistakes. The thing is, the difference is the Lions' mistakes were all coaching related, pretty much. There was that missed interception. That was a somewhat tough interception to make. That wasn't like the Darnell Savage drop where it's right in your hands. He's tracking the ball deep down the field and, goes right through his hands. He's kind of, diving for it in a way. Still should have came down with it, but definitely shouldn't have gave up the catch, which, that was just a tremendous play by Ayuk. But in the end, it was just, two fourth down non-conversions where the Lions could have kicked the field goal both times. Both times they were in field goal range. Didn't kick the field goal, went on fourth. That is 6 points, potentially, that they left on the board there by not converting. Got way too aggressive late. Went for it on 4th and goal when they could kick the field goal and try to drive and get the touchdown after the onside kick. Not sure what they were thinking, but they ended up getting the touchdown, amazingly. But, of course, then they had to make an onside kick. That wasn't possible. And they really just kind of blew it at the end of the game. You want a more detailed description of it, you can Andy Herman does a little bit better job describing it. But that's kind of the gist of it, and some bad coaching decisions. Time management, they didn't want to use their timeouts, then they took it down, ran the ball on a goal-to-go situation. I'm not sure what down it was. Potentially third down, 1 minute left, when they called the timeout. And so they ran the ball, got stuffed, and then he had to call a timeout, where they should have just got down there and spiked it real quick. Shouldn't have been wasting a timeout. Really just poor game management by Dan Campbell, and it's like he doesn't even call the plays. That's what he should be focused on the most, and just kind of got too aggressive in some situations. And we saw, got really aggressive against the Cowboys earlier in the regular season, and kind of blew that game because of a missed 2-point conversion when they could have just kicked an extra point and got into overtime at least. Got really aggressive, and obviously, the penalty played a part in that game, but, he was still going for 2 from 7 yards out, so don't love some of the decision-making. I get why everyone loves Campbell, because the aggressiveness, you like to see it, but it's a playoff game. You can at least tie the game, and, they could have tied it earlier with a field goal, stuff like that. It's playoff football. You got to play a good, sound game, coach a good, sound game, and you make mistakes like that, and that's what will cost you a football game, and it did in this one. So that is pretty much it for my description of that game. Super Bowl will be okay, I guess, for all you Swifties out there, and I will maybe watch the second half. I'd like to give a little bit of love to some of the kickers out there. Tyler Bass was getting death threats on social media. He deleted social media, which I do not blame him one bit, after receiving death threats after he missed the field goal that would have sent the Chiefs-Bills game into overtime. Instead, he missed. Chiefs won. Ended up in the Super Bowl, and I do not like to see this stuff at all. Fans, please stop, okay? We don't need that. And, NFL fans, we're going to talk a little bit about this next week. We got the Pro Bowl games. This is the perfect time to talk about why the NFL is really dumb sometimes. And I like to watch the NFL because of the football. I like to watch the sport, but the NFL makes it okay, try to make it fun, It's not all about getting gain for yourself. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that next week, because that's when we'll need more topics to talk about. But I got to show some love for the kickers. I also watched a short from Adam Botkin. He's kind of a social media type of guy, posts short videos, mostly short videos of him kicking and other random stuff. And so I watch some of his shorts just randomly as they pop up in my feed on YouTube and watched a reel of him making all the field goals. Obviously, no one trying to block the field goal, anything like that, that were missed in the playoffs. And when he got to the Anders Carlson one, he talked about how everyone, was talking about how horrible the kicker was. He pointed to the snap and the hold. The hold ended up being a little far out there, and it caused the kicker. You can watch the video yourself. I actually posted it in my story on Instagram on Cheeseheadz at Cheeseheadz_weekly. You can check that out and follow me on Instagram. But it kind of made the kicker wrap his foot around the ball a little more and kind of just really pulled it left. And it's little things like that, but that's what can throw off a kick. And Matt Orzik, the long snapper, has not been great on the season. Some bad snaps. I think Daniel Whelan has done a pretty good job overall as a holder. I mean, they had a snap earlier in the year. I don't remember when it was. It could have been, I think it might have actually been the playoffs sometime. Maybe also in the 49ers game, a week ago, where one of the field goals he made, if he made a field goal that game, I don't know. It was a field goal that Orzik snapped the ball, put it on the ground, and Whelan had just enough time, was able to get it up, and the kick was good. Was able to get the hold up in time. Stuff like that. We got to fix the long snapper. We have not had a good long snapper in here for a long time. Different stuff like that. We got to fix the special teams a little bit. I have full faith in Rich Bisaccia. I've had high praise for him ever since we hired him, and highest paid special teams coordinator right now. But the pressure will be on him next year to get this special teams performing a little bit better. We've seen flashes. They've still not been, great. They haven't really taken the leap that we thought they might, and definitely want to see that get better. But anyway, all that to say, show some love to them kickers out there. They don't get a whole lot of love, They don't really get talked about when they make a field goal because everyone just expects them to make every field goal, and if they miss, then they receive death threats in some extreme cases. All right, big news here. Obviously, this news is close to a week old because I recorded the last show just before this happened, but Matt LaFleur not waiting around this time to make a decision. He has fired Joe Barry. There were reports right after that he could be brought back and have another role on the team. I talked about the idea with Robin and Troy about maybe hiring Brandon Staley as defensive coordinator and having Joe Barry as a linebackers coach. And they didn't seem, well, at least Robin didn't seem to like that idea. Neither of them really did. Here's the deal. I'm not totally against that. We'll talk about candidates here in a little bit. Packers did bring in Brandon Staley for an interview for this position. Here's the deal. I'm not totally against that. Sure, it's the same scheme. It is not always the scheme. It depends on how you use your players, and we've seen kind of the ability to adapt, and it's possible while Staley uses the same scheme, maybe he's better at putting players in positions to succeed. Maybe he can adapt, is able to adapt the offense a little bit better. And I think Joe Barry is a good positional coach. I think he's good with the players, has good energy. I think maybe he's just not meant to be a defensive coordinator, and that's just kind of the issue here. So, do I really want that? No. That's pretty low on the list of options, but if it gets to this and we have to hire Staley, I'm okay with it. If the Packers interview him and they like him and think he can be better than Barry. But if it's just going to be, if it looks like, sure, it's same scheme, but different coaches are different. Brandon Staley had horrible defenses at Chargers, but when he was with the Chargers as their head coach, he was a head coach, which makes a difference. Other responsibilities, can't focus as much on the defense as he wants to maybe. Was the defensive coordinator for only 1 year. Small sample size. Rams were pretty much the best defense in the NFL. Did have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. That is why I really don't want it to happen. Way too much risk. He could be good as a defensive coordinator. He could be. I mean, there's plenty of examples. Vic Fangio is one of them. He was the Broncos head coach for a little bit there, and that didn't work out so hot, but he is still respected, highly respected as a defensive coordinator, great defensive mind in this league, runs that same type of scheme as Brandon Staley and Joe Barry. They kind of come from that Vic Fangio coaching tree, so I think it could work. It depends on the coach, and each, coaching personalities are different, and I remember, Joe Barry received pretty high praise coming in right away, training camp, just for his energy and connecting with players. But obviously that changes after a while if the defense just does not play good. And so I don't want Brandon Staley to be hired, but that's why I'm not totally against the idea as much as I was before. All right. Now, we will get to some defensive coordinator candidates here in a minute. I do want to talk about kind of the position, like will Green Bay actually draw interest from more of the top options here for defensive coordinator. Here's why I think they will. It looks like Green Bay is primed for, potentially. I'm not saying we should go all in for Super Bowl run next year. I think they are, could get there. I mean, I think they could have got there with this team. I mean, you feel it a little bit more when you're thinking they had the Niners. They don't miss some of those opportunities, missed the kick, drop the interception, all those missed opportunities. We win that game. We play the Lions. We've already beat the Lions. We go to the Super Bowl. We're playing the Chiefs. We've already beat the Chiefs. And you feel that loss a little bit more. Packers were a lot closer than you would think, and they could be in the Super Bowl right now with Jordan Love and this youngest team in the NFL. Would be an incredible story to see a first seventh seed to even win a playoff game, and if they got in the Super Bowl as a seventh seed, youngest team in the NFL, blah 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 blah. I mean, it didn't happen, so. You could stop dreaming, but I'm just saying they were close, and they could be even closer next year. That's the expectation. That's the hope, and so that's why hiring a coordinator is important. So, I mean, these defensive coordinators, this is a prime landing spot. You have a young team, a good bit of talent on the defensive side of the ball, with a general manager that loves to draft defensive players. That's where the main needs seem to be. They don't have a ton of glaring needs on offense. So we could see Goody going out there drafting a lot of guys. And this is, the offense is taken care of. Not a lot of drama. I think it's a great spot for a defensive coordinator. And I think guys out there would love a chance at this job because Green Bay, they're young. They could be good for a long time. And, you're set up for success there. Good coaching, stable ownership, stable organization, no ownership, which is partially why it's a stable organization. And young team, and that's ascending. Lots of great young ascending players, ascending talent, and could be a great landing spot for a defensive coordinator. I'll say two other moves here real quick Packers made right close to after the firing, or maybe before some of them, of Joe Barry. They also fired their strength and conditioning coach, Chris Gizzy. Been there a while, and they had a lot of hamstring injuries, soft tissue injuries that kept reoccurring, Christian Watson and Eric Stokes specifically, and I believe that is the reason, kind of led to that, and obviously there's something they need to change to limit those. They've struggled a lot with hamstring injuries. the past few years, especially Watson and Stokes last year as well. Just they keep coming back, keep popping up again after they're healthy. They're back a game or two, and then it just locks up again. So Matt LaFleur said they do have a plan in place for Christian Watson, and they're going to work through that and just got to work on seeing what to change, what to do differently, figure out what is the problem, and they're having some tests done for Christian Watson and likely Eric Stokes as well to just kind of figure out and get this problem solved during the offseason. You like to see that stuff happening, and they also already brought in kicker competition for Anders Carlson, which I said they need to do. I'd love Anders Carlson to be the kicker of the future, but I think to work toward that point, you need to bring in competition. They brought in Jack Podlesny, and I think he was formerly with the Vikings maybe, and also was a Georgia Bulldog before that in college. So kicker competition, fired strength and conditioning coach, and the defensive coordinator pretty early on after the season, so we can get on with the search for defensive coordinator, get the competition ready for training camp, mini camp, all those OTAs, all that stuff. And next on the list, I think, is we need a long snapper. We need to fix everything and look at everything on the special teams, especially. All right, let's go over a few defensive candidates. So first of all, let me just look here. The Green Bay Packers have interviewed or will interview former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley, Bills linebackers coach Bobby Babich, and Dallas Cowboys defensive line coach Aiden Dirty, and Denver Broncos defensive backs coach Christian Parker. So I already talked about Brandon Staley a little bit. I did not look into Bobby Babich and Aiden Dirty a whole lot. From what I've heard, everything seems to be pretty good about them. The one I'm most excited about is Christian Parker. And here's part of the reason. Andrew Mertig on X or Twitter, based on, I'm quoting from him here, based on two separate sources, Christian Parker is currently in Green Bay, and I'm being led to believe he's been offered the Green Bay DC job. No word on if it has been accepted. This is on January 27, which would be Saturday. So this is not an official report. This is Andrew Mertig from the Pack-A-Day podcast, one of the hosts over there. And apparently, I did listen to an episode where he kind of explained a little bit what he was thinking. He said he kind of wished he didn't really put it out there because everyone's blowing up about it. And we're seeing everyone, pretty much accepting it as truth. There's been no other reports to confirm that. So it's something to keep an eye on. He doesn't know for sure himself. He texted someone. He heard from a friend that they saw Parker wandering around Green Bay. Mertig texted a friend that has connections within or is connected to the organization, and that friend said apparently led him to believe. Okay, he didn't get into specifics there, but he said he did choose his words carefully for that reason, based on what his friend told him. His source told him he was led to believe that Parker was offered the job, and apparently he had another source as well, because it says based on two separate sources. So all told, we do not know really anything more than we do before, except for the Packers are obviously interested in Christian Parker, and it's possible they offered him the job. We don't know if anything's happened on that front. We don't know for sure if they did offer him the job. We don't even know if he's actually in Green Bay. We do know that they are interviewing Christian Parker, who was the defensive backs coach for the Denver Broncos. I will go over him in a deeper dive a little bit here in a minute. Other candidates, according to Albert Breer on X, we have Titans passing game coordinator Chris Harris apparently crushed his interview with the Packers a couple years ago, and Matt LaFleur worked with Ejiro Evero in Los Angeles. So those would be two names to consider. That is Albert Breer. So those are, two names to consider. Ejiro Evero, I've talked about him a little bit. He would be number one on my list. If they could get him, he would be the guy I would get. Ejiro Evero apparently could still be in play. So far, he has received interest from the Rams. But Carolina Panthers did hire a new head coach, formerly the Buccaneers offensive coordinator, Dave Canales, and Ejiro Evero could either take a head coaching job or remain with the Panthers as defensive coordinator. But according to Albert Breer again of SportsIllustrated.com, suggests Evero, potential top candidate for Matt LaFleur, could still be in play for both the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams, who are interested in Evero as well. According to Breer, Evero is set to make $3 million per year as the Panthers coordinator in 2024, but he would make, quote, at or near the top. But he would be, quote, at or near the top of a candidate list for the Packers and Rams, and a chance to coordinate defenses for either the Packers or Rams. It might better help Evero's chances of one day becoming head coach. Evero, that's kind of his goal. I think he could be a head coach right now, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if someone hires him here before too long. But if not, Packers, I already talked about it, great landing spot and could help his chances to become a head coach. So Panthers have been blocking interview requests for Evero, and the belief is the team wants to return to lead the defense for Canales, a first-time head coach. Evero was a defensive quality control assistant in Green Bay under Dom Capers in 2016, interviewed with LaFleur during the 2021 hiring cycle, was on the short list, apparently. Packers eventually went with Joe Barry after offering Jim Leonard the job. No word on if Jim Leonard is available, really, or, he's out there. Packers apparently haven't interviewed him yet. Not sure if they're interested anymore. It's quite possible that the Packers offered him the job before he didn't take it, and they're just going to leave it at that and look elsewhere. Jim Leonard, Andy Herman did some poll with the fans with a whole pile of candidates and came out at the end with Jim Leonard as the fans' choice to be the new Packers defensive coordinator. We will see if that materializes. I wouldn't be opposed to that at all. Jim Leonard is one of the top candidates on my list. But I got to say, I've looked into Christian Parker, who seems to be the most likely option at this point in time without knowing a whole lot. I will talk to you a little bit more about him, but I think he just moved into the top of my list. And, like I said, talk about him a little bit. So his coaching resume, he's a native of Northern Virginia, attended the University of Richmond as a student or athlete, and he ran track at the University of Richmond. Also played receiver and cornerback for the football team. After his playing career, he joined Virginia State, which is a Division II program, as a graduate assistant, and was then promoted to defensive backs coach. After 2 years at Virginia State, he left one HBCU for another and joined FCS Norfolk State as a defensive backs coach. He then spent 2 years there actually, and joined Mike Elko's staff at Notre Dame, defensive analyst in 2017. Elko is now the head coach at Texas A&M, and he left Notre Dame in 2018 for A&M, and Christian Parker. I'm not really sure where I'm getting. I guess Elko and Parker, you get Parko. That must be what it is. Parker followed Elko to Texas A&M in 2018 in an analyst role yet again. In 2019, we have a connection. Matt LaFleur hired him to be a defensive quality control coach under then defensive coordinator Mike Pettin. He was there for 2 years in Green Bay for 2 years, was offered a full-time on-field coaching job by the Denver Broncos as their defensive backs coach, and he's been in Denver for 3 years now, and he was retained, and he's been under 3 different head coaches and 3 different defensive coordinators. He coached under Vic Fangio, who chose to part ways mutually, I believe, with the Dolphins, and was immediately hired by the Eagles. So he's now the Eagles defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, and current Panthers defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, who, like I said, is at the top, or very near the top. Him and Parker, right close to the top. I'd say Evero's probably at the top of the list if Packers get a hold of him. But as far as ones that are actually more available, Parker's at the top of the list. So current Panthers defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, and current Broncos defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph, this past year. Joseph was hired to be their defensive coordinator, and Parker coached under him. That's a big deal because if you have new defensive coordinators and head coaches, like completely different staffs, but yet he made that a big enough impression on them, even though completely, maybe different schemes, all that diversity, he was able to retain his role as defensive backs coach those 3 years, even with all the changes going on around him. That's big stuff. So, very young. He's only 32. Turned 32 back in December. So, he's just 32. Young guy, energy seems to be good with the players. You can listen to some sound bites on YouTube. And also listen to Andy Herman's, the Pack A podcast. Andy Herman has an episode where he talks about the interviewees for the position, that the guys who have interviewed for the position with the Packers, and talks about Parker there and gives some more thoughts. I do not want to steal any information from him, so I won't talk too much about that. I'll just say what I know. And I found a quote here from Robbie Davis, who covers the Broncos. Here is the quote. For sure, he's been there a while and has been a huge part in the secondary, obviously, with their technique, but he's also been a big part of their defensive structure. Especially this season, Peyton wanted to bring in Vance Joseph to run a blend of his defense and the Fangio defense, which he's never been in. So, Parker was practically teaching the defense early on while also teaching Vance on the finer details of it. You can watch the defense start to take form as the season went on. Early, it looked like a bunch of jumbled up concepts with no philosophy, and they found their identity midway through the season. One thing that was notable for me was how the DBs for the past few years have played a sort of passive and safe style of coverage/tackling, but when things, and that's Vic Fangio style defense, to interrupt there, we've seen that from Joe Barry a lot. So for the past few years have played a sort of passive and safe style of coverage/tackling, but when things this season were really bad, him and VJ, Vance Joseph, flipped a switch and started to emphasize playing the ball in the air and when they tackle as well. So I think that says a lot about how adaptable he is. Adaptable By the way, that's the end of the quote. Adaptable is the key word there. That is the main thing I believe we're looking for in a defensive coordinator, adaptability. And I think he can do that because he's been in so many different schemes. It says here he helped Vance Joseph, teaching him what kind of they wanted. Vance Joseph running a blend of his defense and the Fangio defense. So Parker was pretty much teaching him the Fangio side of the defense, as he had previously coached for Vic Fangio there in Denver. And then we have, the adaptability, and that's what happens when you're playing for 3 different systems, and that's pretty crazy. Evero does run a similar system to Fangio, and Vance Joseph, not really sure what coaching tree he comes from, but obviously he blended his defense with the Fangio defense, because that is what head coach Sean Payton wanted. So Parker was interviewed by the Patriots. Patriots had interested in him, but the job has been given to DeMarcus Covington, who was with the Patriots. They promoted from inside, went internal with it. So Parker has pretty much the Packers' interest only for the most part. I mean, everyone's interested in him probably to some extent. Here is current defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, the Broncos defensive coordinator. Quote, "He's sharp, man. He's sharp. He's a star. He's a great partner to work with. As a veteran coach, I've coordinated for about 7 years now. My tape is out there, so I'm looking for ways to do different things. I've been speaking with Christian every day and bouncing ideas off him from what he's done with Vic and guys in the past has been fun. We're making changes and growing off what they did last year. He's smart, he works his butt off, and his players love playing for him. He's a star." So, man, really, really good stuff from Christian Parker. Guys speak highly of him. Vance Joseph speaks highly of him. Guys that cover the Broncos speak highly of him. That's all I'm really going to say. I don't know anything more than anyone else. And but I'm excited. He's young. There obviously is some risk involved. I mean, it sounds like he has all the basics covered except for the experience. Never been a defensive coordinator. Hasn't even been in the NFL that long. But just connects with the players. And that's why I was intrigued by guys like maybe Al Harris, who kind of just teaches the players to do their thing, and then they can mix them into the scheme however they best fit. But just teaching the players to be technically sound, just to play better overall themselves. And I think that's a lot of what Christian Parker does, a former player. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Former players seem to connect with their teams more and with their players more that they're coaching. So I like to see that. Obviously not former player in the NFL, just a little bit in college. So not, a ton of playing experience. But that does make a difference, I think. And so, I think that will help him if he is able to get the job, and I kind of hope he does. Really intrigued by him, and really young, like I said. Everything looks good, except for kind of, the inexperience, coaching in the NFL and lack of experience as a defensive coordinator. Like I said, you can watch on YouTube some sound bites from him, and some good stuff there. Sounds like a really cool guy. All right, I believe we're going to wrap this thing up. Next episode, we got the Pro Bowl games. Not going to do a whole lot of talking about that. I'm going to talk about the NFL a little bit. I might go over my top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and not just on the season, who I think are the best 10 quarterbacks in the NFL overall right now. Also, or maybe you could say going into next year. And let me think here. We got some different free agency coming up, draft coming up. I'm going to definitely get into research with the draft. Pack-A-Day podcast is really upping their game. They got Ross Uglum in there, who is a draft expert, and he's doing had been over with Packer Report, but he's doing Packers draft stuff. And Mock Draft Monday is coming over in podcast form as well. I forget when he's doing episodes, Monday and maybe 2 or 3 days a week. But, I mean, combined with everything else they do, it's really incredible. I like having some draft content, and it's just Packers, which is awesome. It goes over the Packers' needs and players that they will be, keeping their eyes on and probably be, more interested in, and who I'm more interested in just because it's more related to Packers. So you can check that out, The Daily Draft by Ross Uglum, there, Pack-A-Day Podcast, wherever you get the Pack-A-Day Podcast, which is anywhere, YouTube included. Shout out to them. And no, they're not sponsoring me or anything dumb like that. I just think they're a really great show, and that's where I get lots of my info from, so I think I should at least give them some credit for that. Yeah, that's where I get some of my ideas, and I really appreciate that. Okay. I guess that is it for today's episode. I will be back next week, episode 54, to talk some other random topics I come up with without a whole lot of football happening. We get to talk some, extracurricular. So stay tuned. Thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. Once again, subscribe, follow, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. Be sure to rate the show, rate and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow on social media. And that's all for me. Go Pack, go.